I'm Casey. You guys know that. Why don't you want to introduce yourself here and tell us where we are?
Bartley Bloom, president and owner of Brewstillery. We are in the current tap room right now. It's not open for business yet, but hopefully soon in the next couple months.
I hope so. I mean, this is I need more of this. So.
Cheers.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, I don't know. Miles, you want to introduce yourself just because so we know who you are?
Oh, well, I guess I'm Miles. I'm the liquor store guy that you hear on Department of Defense periodically. So
pretty much every other week.
Yeah, more or less. Frequently. Okay.
All right. So I guess why don't we just start here? Bartley, why don't you just tell us a little bit about Brewstillery and what you do here?
Well, we are a brewery and distillery. We're brewing several different types of beers, and we'll be distilling several different types of liquors as well. The definition of craft, of course, is what we're going for, craft brewery, and bringing that into a craft distillery as well. It's a niche in the market here in the Twin Cities that hasn't been fully addressed yet, and it's an emerging market that is gaining a lot of traction.
Okay. Why the Brewstillery and not just one way or the other?
Well, there's been a ton of breweries opening up, and we all know this. They're pretty much everywhere. And, for me, I've never been a Me Tooer. I'm not going to do the Me Too thing. So I actually thought quite long and hard about what I can do to set myself apart. Then I read a book about distilling, and I was hooked. I fell in love. I knew that had just that extra little bit of added complication to the brewing process that just really appealed to me as being the next evolution, in brewing, is taking it to the next level and actually distilling it, breaking it down into different compounds. And as an ex-scientist and engineer, that really appealed to me. And just looking at the shelves, you see there's a lot of room for creativity in the distilled spirits market. Mm-hmm. It's basically a canvas that no one's painting on yet. There are a lot of craft distilleries in the nation, but there's not many here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So it was something to me that was extremely appealing in its scientific nature and its complication. I saw a good fit for it. And, it was just one more thing that I thought would make my life a little bit more difficult.
Well, that's all we strive for, right? Making our lives more difficult.
Well, I always quote Kennedy, and I mangled the quote, but what he said about going to the moon, he says, we're not doing it because it's easy. Yeah. We're doing it because it's hard. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been my fallback.
That's the human
motivation.
Spirit distilled down, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I was looking for a challenge. I wanted to do something that was extremely difficult. It's been a while since I've been fully challenged, and this is something, don't get cute with that. Not mentally challenged. But it's just something that to me was a logical progression in the brewing world. Yeah. Is going into the distilled spirits because there's so much room for creativity.
Mm-hmm. You said, you just said you're an ex-scientist. What did you do before this? I'm just curious now.
I was in the world of aerospace.
Huh?
I actually spent several years working for NASA in Huntsville.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
No, this is exciting news. Space is cool.
Yeah, space is really cool. And hence, we use a lot of really cool stuff here, and then we appeal to the nerd because I'm, at heart, I'm a nerd as well. We worked in the destructive testing side of NASA is where I worked. So instead of non-destructive testing like X-rays and dye penetrants, we actually blew stuff up.
So you had the best job in the world, is what you're saying.
I loved it. Yeah, it was great.
Why would you not? Why would you leave that?
Yeah, it was because it was Alabama.
Okay.
No,
that's all you had to say.
It was a very difficult place to get used to the humidity.
Yeah, sure.
And there was just a few detractors there, but it was a lot of fun. I moved from there into Department of Veterans Affairs, where I worked with it's more like construction management, I guess, for renovations of hospitals and that sort of thing. From there, I went to that job took me to Miami for a couple of years, which, you know, I can see exactly where that saying is. It's a great place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. That was a Miamiite that put that together, I'm sure. So looking to get out of there, I had a job offering up here with another aerospace company that built high-speed wind tunnels and jet engine test cells and things like that. So it kind of played back into the NASA experience. All the facilities that they built were at least 500 miles an hour or faster. It was the transonic range, testing a lot of fighters, you know, jet fighters, a lot of reentry vehicles, and that sort of stuff. So we built the facilities to test these high-tech aerodynamic
That is
things.
amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of the big NASA wind tunnels that are out there now that are used for aerodynamic research were made by this company.
Wow.
And,
That's really neat.
Yeah, I worked there for 15 years, somewhere around there. And it was probably about a year and 3 months ago when I decided to shed the shackles of corporate bondage and move out into something a little bit more fun.
More fun.
Yeah. Not that wasn't interesting. It was very interesting, but this is
Time
much
for a
more fun.
change. Yeah, I believe that.
So did you take anything from your aerospace past into what you're doing today?
Yeah, you know, beer does go pretty fast, but it doesn't quite go that fast. You know, I learned quite a bit. I spent about 3 years as an electrical engineer leading a team to build a wind tunnel in Melbourne. And then from there, right into the business development side of the company. And spent the last 12 years there in business development. So that has primed me, I would say, for this, because I got a very up close and personal view of business and how it's done, and what not to do, and what to do. So that was very, very important to me to help make me a more rounded president of a brewery. Plus, just having the background of the electrical engineering education and all that, giving you the problem solving skills that you need. Of course, nothing can prep you, for being a brewery owner, unless you do go to business school.
Unless
and all
you've
that
done
sort of
it.
stuff. Exactly, or worked underneath someone that does it well. So yeah,
very cool. I guess bringing it back to the brewery itself a little bit. You guys recently merged with Poor Decisions. What brought that around? Can you just tell us a little bit of the story behind that?
Yeah, I approached them. I guess it was probably around a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe it was in March of 2013, and just to talk to them about contract brewing for me. My business plan had always been to start a Pico brewery with a small tap room. I had a 1.5 barrel system that I would use to basically make enough beer to supply my little tap room. I'd have my little distillery in the side as well, and make that for distribution.
So it'd just kind of be like this small little niche place that you'd have regulars come to and just be awesome.
Yeah, a nice little neighborhood place.
Open a few days a week or whatever.
Yeah, Wednesday through Saturday kind of thing, work up to that. And then have the majority of my beer contract brewed by another company.
Sure.
And that would go out for distribution. And that would go to liquor stores and restaurants and all of that. So all I made in the tap room would only supply the tap room, and I would make larger batches at a contract place to get to all the other places, because there's really no way of surviving as that small of a brewery.
Yeah.
Unless your overhead is zero and you're not paying rent. That's the only way you can really get by. So I would have to have the contract brewing arrangement. So in looking for that piece of the puzzle, I started talking with Poor Decisions, and at first it was no. Answer was no. But just like everything else, I don't give up that easily. If it's something that's important to me, I can be pretty persistent. And I kept coming in and talking, because this is my local tap room as well. It's not far from my home. I'm about 5 miles away from here, so. I'd come in and, I'd bring it up once in a while, and no. And then one day he goes, yeah, you know what? Maybe. We could use a couple extra bucks.
That was the word you needed, right?
Exactly. That was all I needed. It was like there's a
chink
crack,
in the armor.
there's a chink in the armor, and I can work with that. And it just turned into a contract brewing arrangement. Then, in working with the state and various other outside influences, I found out that the real way for me to get where I wanted to be was to be an alternating proprietorship instead of a contract brewer.
Okay.
So, went that route. So we turned our contract brewing arrangement into an alternating proprietorship.
Sorry, I'm not entirely sure what that means. Would you?
Alternating proprietorship. There's a couple examples out there, such as Lucid,
Okay.
and Badger Hill, and Bad Weather.
Okay.
Lucid is the owner of the brewery, and Badger Hill and Bad Weather are alternating proprietorships with them. So basically, different parties bring different things to the party.
Okay.
And the facility stays the owners, and the tenant brewer can come in and brew batches of beer. So it's basically a way of sharing costs.
Okay.
So it's not quite like roommates, but it's similar. It's like roommates in a house where one guy owns the house.
Okay.
And the other people just kind of live
Yeah.
there, and use the stove. And things like that.
A few big stoves, but
Yep, really, really big ones.
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea behind that.
Okay.
And I guess it was probably in October or November of last year when the owners of Poor Decisions came to me and said, what do you think about merging? We really like what you're doing. We get along well. Let's merge under the name of Brewstillery, and let's see where we can go with this. And I thought it was a great idea. I was actually concerned about the potential competition. Because I would start up somewhere around here.
Yeah, and there'd be two locals.
And then this just kind of took care of all that.
Yeah.
This took care of that by itself. And Kristen ends up being able to do exactly what he wants to do. He's still a big part of this,
Yep.
and he wants to brew. And I want to be an owner. I wanted to brew, but I'm not going to jump in the way of Kristen.
Yeah.
He's too good.
No,
He's too good of a brewer, for me to try and wiggle my way into that one. He also has quite a bit of experience with distilling as well. So it's something that he did at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
He also, I think he worked for a little while with New Holland.
Okay.
So he's got a lot of experience there as well. So I know I've got him to turn to if I ever have any issues.
Yeah.
because I know New Holland has some spirits as well.
Yeah. They're also they're a very big spirit producer, and they've been doing some very interesting things too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We really like New Holland and what they're doing and what they represent. Yeah.
I agree.
Very cool. All right, I guess specifically about the beers, can you tell us anything about like what kind of beers you guys are looking at doing, or?
Yeah, our current list of beers is one thing. Our current list of beers, we've got the Nordic Blonde and the Dark Father, which are my recipes, and we've also got Infidelity, Maroon and Bold, which is a seasonal, and then Powder's Beer from Poor Decisions. These are some recipes that we're going to continue and continue to produce. Those vary from the Nordic Blonde being a very normal, drinkable cross between a pale ale and a blonde ale.
And it's fantastic, I just got to say, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, what are you drinking?
This is the Powder's Beer.
Okay.
This is a Belgian blonde beer, or a Monk's Golden Ale.
Okay.
Is another term used. But this is also another lighter beer. Then we've got, of course, the IPAs, the double IPA. And then we've got the Dark Father, which is in and of its own level. It's a light-bodied stout.
Okay.
Most stouts are extremely heavy and very filling. And that was the one thing I didn't like about stouts. So, brew it out of it. You've got the power as a brewer to do whatever the heck you want. Yeah. So, style guidelines be damned. We're going to do what we want to do.
That's the way to do it.
And it just seems to have hit the right spot, too, in the Twin Cities market, because we sold out of the bottles instantly. I mean, those were so gone, within a month, and, we're getting calls all the time for pre-ordering. So we've got a backlog right now of orders for the next batch, which is currently in the fermenter, and we'll be ready by the end of February. Is what we're hoping.
Are you going to try to ramp this one into year-round production, or are you going to try to keep it as a seasonal?
We're actually going to drop this into a seasonal.
Okay.
Yes. We've got still many other really
things you
cool
wanna
ideas
do,
that we want to do. We do recognize that this is a very popular beer, and we do want to bring it back, and we will. There's going to be a lot of really cool things that we're going to do with this Dark Father. We're going to be cellaring quite a bit as well.
Okay.
I've got 5-year-old homebrewed batches of this that just gets better and better.
That sounds
So
fantastic.
Yeah,
this is a great cellaring beer. So we're going to cellar some of our own, batch number 1. Wax dip tops, maybe some gold leaf on it or something. I don't know.
Miles, remember, we need to get here next year.
So this is a beer to buy and save, for sure.
Yep.
Buy one
Vertical
to drink and buy
tastings.
one to save. And we're going to be doing the same thing. Like I say, we'll be releasing it. I'm hoping that 10 years from now, we can release some of batch number 1 again.
That'd be really cool.
I think that would be really interesting to have, a vertical tasting as well. Batch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Can you put my name on a pre-order for that?
Yes. We're bottling up. We'll probably bottle up about 200 cases or so.
Okay.
With this next batch, and then go from
Store
there.
that, yeah.
I think we just need one for the podcast.
Right?
Later
Right.
on. Yep.
Then also, it's a great beer for barrel aging.
Okay.
Just behind us here, we've got over 600 gallons of it aging in various barrels, including rye whiskey, single malt whiskey, bourbon, scotch, and the rum.
Wow.
Now, the rum I'm really looking forward to, because when I smelled that rum barrel, it just had this wonderful sweetness to it, and I was like, that's going to go perfectly
What
with
kind
Dark
of
Father.
rum? Like, what was the original
It's a
distillery?
Nicaraguan rum.
Do you know?
So I don't know the brand name of it, but
Where are you sourcing all these barrels? Like, are they local?
I got a guy.
You got a guy?
You got a guy.
That's good to know.
Good enough.
I got a barrel
Good
guy.
enough. Yeah.
Pretty soon we'll be doing our own, of course. And that's something that's probably one of the things I'm looking forward to the most is expanding our barrel aging program using our own barrels. And again, that's something that this niche allows us to do because we're a brewery and distillery. We can age our beer in our own bourbon barrels.
I suppose that really isn't done very much at all.
No,
It's
I don't know if I think Rogue might do it
Rogue,
with their dead guy, but that's the only thing I can
They
think
might have
of.
done it, no. But
But yeah,
you're
that's one of the
definitely
things.
leading something new.
Yeah,
here.
definitely.
It just is another interesting factor that we've got. Our interest factors are just so many. It seems like that. It's just one more thing, and having a Dark Father aged in our bourbon barrel, yet to be released name of our bourbon, but and then putting a whiskey in it after that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Really the possibilities are endless.
Just
so many
mixing and
layers
matching and so much.
Absolutely, and
So much fun.
And we're going to do something else that's very rare right now, and I really am shocked as why it's so rare. But we're going to barrel age some gin.
There's not very many, if any, barrel-aged gin.
There's a couple, but that's it. And like I say, that really surprises me.
I feel like that spirit would really lend itself to it, just with the complexity as it is as a base spirit.
Absolutely.
It's actually been a random thought of mine. I've put a lot of recent independent research into distilling, and that was one of the things that kind of came to my mind because I'm a big gin fan too.
Yeah.
So.
No, we're going to make a very, very unique gin. Gins mainly focus on the juniper berry.
Correct.
We're going to bury the juniper berry.
Good call.
Good
call.
We're gonna have so
I like
many.
this guy more and more.
We're gonna have so many botanicals in there. You're not even gonna know that it's gin.
I'm okay with this.
It's we're gonna put all sorts of really cool stuff in it. Yeah, the juniper berry is my least favorite part of gin. Fortunately, it's the only part of most gin.
Yes.
But again, that's another thing, about working outside the style guidelines and breaking the mold into doing something more interesting. What's creative about throwing a bunch of juniper berries in a bottle? It really isn't that creative. And the whole thing about being an artisanal spirit is being artistic. Do something, and at heart, all brewers and distillers are culinary people.
Yeah.
They're most akin to chefs, in that we're putting flavors together in a way that they complement each other and not fight each other.
Yeah.
That's the whole part about making a dish that people flip over, is how well the flavors complement. And then without having that innate ability, you're just throwing Cheetos into SpaghettiOs. I mean, really, two great flavors by themselves, but I don't know, man. You put them together.
I might try this later.
Cheetos and SpaghettiOs?
Yes.
That sounds terrible. I don't think you should do it, Miles. That seems like a terrible idea.
No, all right. On the lighter side, I'm just personally kind of curious. Do you have a favorite beer style, and do you have a favorite spirit that you tend towards over time?
I've always been a bourbon fan.
Thank you.
That's always been my favorite as far as spirits go. As far as beer goes, I'm pretty much a slut. I love them all.
Way too hard to pick.
yeah.
There's only a few that I don't like. There's a few styles that I don't like, but other than that, I love a good palate pummeling, enamel peeling IPA. But I also like a good normal beer, like our Nordic Blonde.
Sure.
I don't like a lot of stouts. That's why I make the one as unique as I do, is because I don't like heavy beers. I like beers that are more drinkable and lighter bodied. So, if I had to pick my favorite beer of all time right now,
I didn't ask that, but okay.
But it would probably be the Nordic Blonde. I mean, because it's an everyday beer. It's probably the one I drink the most of. But then again, if I was to try and describe to you the best beer on the planet, it would be closer to a Pliny the Elder, a Sculpin, High Lie. What was the one I just had the other day from Green Flash? Palate Wrecker.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Incredible beer.
Is that a triple IPA?
Yeah,
Something
I don't
like
know.
that. It's
Those big IPAs, something about them.
And they're great. It's something that does the.
Why not?
Yeah,
well, I mean, at this point, you can't be a brewery without trying to define yourself with your own IPA.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and a lot of people, they'll go in and they'll try the pale ale to get their judge of a brewery, their pale ale or their IPA, because everyone has one.
I have high standards.
Well, plus, and it's what I like to drink as well. So if I go back behind the bar in my tap room, I want to be able to pour myself an IPA. And unless I make it, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So it becomes more of an issue of, what do I want? Come on.
You kind of got to brew for yourself a little bit.
I'm not totally altruistic. I do have some selfishness to me that, I want to make what I want to drink.
And
that's the biggest thing.
I'll just say this. I find some of the beers I like the most come from the people who don't brew for others.
Right.
They actually brew for themselves and then invite people on their own bandwagon.
Yeah.
And, that's also where you tend to find people with the most passion.
Right.
And the kind of outlook on this whole, atmosphere that you also seem to have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. In this IPA, in like you mentioned, defining yourself with your IPA, I'm mostly German by heritage. So we're going to make a 100% German IPA.
That is...
Ooh.
Is there such a thing?
Germans don't make IPA.
No.
Germans are very malt focused.
Yes.
As a country, as a style, they're very malt focused. So, they're starting to get a little bit hoppier, and they're starting to grow some very, very interesting hops.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, take advantage of that fact, and we're gonna jump in with both feet, and we're making a 100% German IPA.
That would be very
Can you tell us anything about the concept of that, what kind of malts or hops you're looking at using in that?
We're going to use standard malts with the exception of leaning more towards the darker side.
Okay.
So it's going to be a Schwarz IPA. You ever heard of a Schwarz beer?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm picturing it in my mind right now.
So it's going to be darker, and again, putting all this together, you always look at who's at the top of of the ladder, and who you want to emulate or who you want to chase as far as being number one. Okay. So, you know, in looking at who's at the top of the ladder, there's always the same few year after year. Again, Pliny the Elder, you know, and again, it's just synonymous.
It doesn't seem to change a whole lot. Those top 5, top 10.
You know, so we were toying around with calling this Pliny the Darker.
Russian River. I don't know what they would do.
I don't know.
German River. You know. I don't know. You know, but no, I don't want to step on any toes. So yeah, it was just a joke.
Would be fun to step on.
It would be, you know,
just a little bit,
just to poke the bear.
Yeah.
But no, you know, it's going to be. We're toying around with a couple different ideas for names. One is either Uberlupen. Uber, you know, the German word for super, and Lupin is kind of short for lupulin.
Yeah.
And another one is Z German. I don't know. We've got some ideas for that, and hopefully we'll be coming out with that in the next month.
Awesome.
We've got a test batch going right now, and it is good. It is really good. The hops that we're going to be using, you know, there's a lot of really cool new hops like the Hercules, Mercure, all these coming out of Germany that are really, really nice. There's a couple of new strains of Hallertauer that we'd like to get our hands on to experiment with, but, you know, we'll see how all that goes.
Is it hard to get your hands on enough of those hops?
Yeah, you know, we've actually had to strategize about that quite a bit. We've had many conversations about risk, you know, in having very unique hops as our focal point and then not being able to get them. Mm-hmm. But with risk comes reward. I mean,
if you can get them.
Simcoe got famous because somebody started using it.
Really fast.
And, you know, this unique hop all of a sudden is everywhere, and now there's a shortage again because everyone wants it. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, there's risks that you take.
It's always about
But the people who got in early have the hop contracts, and so they're able to
get it. You're able to get it, right. So the innovators are the ones who still win out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and that's the funny thing, too. I mean, I get asked all the time, I mean, don't we have enough breweries?
Oh,
you know, is there room for one more?
There's always room for one more.
And I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, have we run out of food ideas?
Yeah. Do we have too many restaurants?
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the question that it turns into is like, there is still so much more room for creativity. I mean, all these chefs are still coming up with all these phenomenal dishes that no one's ever heard of before.
This is one area that's hard to exhaust.
You know, it is. You know, there's just so many different variables that go into the equation of beer that the possibilities are really limitless. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's really what I'm looking forward to doing with the craft spirits too, is bringing all this creativity to bear on a canvas that's virtually blank.
So are you looking to invent new styles?
Absolutely. We're going to make up our own shit all over the place. You know, and that's kind of what we've done with the beers so far as the Nordic Blonde. We're calling it an amber blonde ale. There's no such style as that.
There is now.
There is now, exactly. You know, and that's the thing.
How long before the BJCP?
Right?
3 years. Yeah, that's right.
Give it time.
You know, in being rebels against style, you know, and that doesn't just mean wearing sneakers with my suit. I actually don't concern myself with the style guidelines. You know, I basically put together what I think is going to taste good and call it whatever the heck fits. You know, I mean, our Dark Father, it's an American Imperial Stout. Empire, you know, because we've got the Darth Vader in a pimp outfit on the label. So, you know, it's not an Imperial Stout, it's an Imperial Stout. Well, people always tell me you misspelled Imperial. And it's
I
like,
didn't.
Right over their head. You know, but again, I enjoy that sort of thing, though, too. I mean, the tongue-in-cheek kind of jokes, the finding humor in paradox, you know, all that sort of stuff. You know, when you look at some of my artwork and things like that, look for the
little joke.
Look for the
jokes, little hidden jokes.
Things. Yeah. Perfect.
What's your distribution range right now? Like, where can people find you?
We are everywhere from Cottage Grove up to Ramsey, out in Chaska, Chanhassen,
So
And
basically
all
just
around
the
here,
Twin
of course.
Cities area,
Yeah.
a little bit beyond. Are you looking in the future to expand past that?
Absolutely. I'd love to get to Wisconsin.
Yes.
We would love to have you.
I've got a lot of friends in Wisconsin. And,
I know
and
a
every
few
one of
people
them,
myself.
Every one of them say
You
you
just made
got
a
to get
few
your beer
more,
there.
so-
Yeah.
Cool. Good deal.
So,
So that's the idea, and where it goes, it goes. I do plan to expand as as production and time permits, as far as I can go. And once you open the door to Wisconsin, anywhere else is open as well.
Yeah.
You get into the Dakotas, and Iowa, Indiana. Illinois, all around here, become regional, and then from regional, go to national. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then I guess going back to your barrel program, I don't know if we touched on this or not. Sours, are you guys looking at doing a lot of sours with the barrels or not really?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is another interesting part of our business model and our concept and the cool stuff that we've got coming down the line. We are going to do a lot of sours.
Perfect.
We're
need
going
a
to
good sour brewery.
We really do.
Yes.
We really do.
We need someplace we can go every weekend.
In Kristen being probably one of the best sour beer brewers I've ever run across, it's just a perfect fit, and we really got to get those out there. So we've got some fermenting right now. We've got a 5-barrel fermenter that we got specifically for sours. We're looking forward to getting that into the full rotation of production, so we can start getting beer into kegs and into bottles to get it into people's hands, so that we can start satisfying this huge thirst that Minnesotans have for sour beer.
I mean, it's surprising how many people just love sour beers and can't get their hands on them.
Right, and that's the thing. And when you can get them, they're not always that good.
No, they're not.
It's not even just a love; it's a lust.
It really is.
It's a lust.
Sometimes you just need a sour.
You don't just kind of like one.
That's right.
It's a love or hate thing.
It is a love or hater. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
I'm on the love side.
Oh, me too. We did that entire sour beer episode.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah, we came back from the West Coast with a bunch of stuff from Cascade and Russian River. We
Yeah.
just did an entire episode just for good sour beers. It was a good
very
time.
cool. Yeah. Well, we'll have to do that again. When we
Oh,
get ours
definitely.
ready.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll bring it here, and and again, like I say, it's one of those things. We get a lot of requests for that, and we listen. We want to make these cool, interesting things that people really want. We don't want to make cool, interesting things that no one wants. First, if we love it, then we know everyone else is going to love it too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're very normal people in that regard. Our taste buds are very similar to the rest of the world, and that helps.
And that's one of the things. I work at a liquor store and I have for years now. It's one thing that I end up telling people a lot is you can't fake good beer.
Right.
You can't. There's
You
no
really
way
can't,
around
yeah.
it.
It's either good or it's not.
Yeah, and people are going to know the difference in the story.
Yep, definitely. So, we're lucky enough to deal with a lot of very crafty outlets, too, as far as people that carry our beer. There's a lot of people out there that aren't just big mega stores that just want to push beer. Mm-hmm. There are people that really care about beer itself, and helping them along with this whole thing and helping them to help us. It's great. Yeah.
Malted beverages, whether or not in this modern form, have been part of human culture for thousands of years.
Yep.
And there's no getting away from that. We might as well just embrace it.
Embrace it.
Absolutely.
Cheers. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to start wrapping up here. Is there anything you'd like to plug, or where can we find you on the internet and stuff like that? Or
www.bentbrewstillery.com, all one word. You can Google it. You can. We're on the Instagram. We're on the Twitter. We're on the Facebook. And I know you're not supposed to have an article in front of those proper nouns, but I use it anyway.
It is the
ironically.
Facebook or the Twitter.
The Facebook and the Twitter.
Everyone knows what you're telling. It's just there.
So follow us out there on that. We're posting and tweeting many times a week, just to keep people up to date on what's going on. That's where we'll be making our announcements of what we're making next and where you can find it. We've also got a beer locator map on our website.
Okay.
So if you click on that, you can actually allow the computer to know where you are, and it will show you where your nearest retailer is for our products. You know, we've been doing pretty decent. You know, I'm pretty happy with the first 2 months of distribution. We're in probably 25 different liquor stores and around 15 different bars.
Oh, that's not bad.
And restaurants.
Very cool.
So
Very cool.
I'm very happy with that. You know, and most of that has been keeping up with the calls coming into us.
Sure.
And for this sort of thing to happen is phenomenal.
Are you guys
It's actually
self-distributed, or do you have
We
a
are.
distributor? Okay.
Yeah. It's me and my buddy
All right.
and my piece of shit blazer. We call it the Bentmobile.
Because it is.
So the Batmobile. I feel like the Batmobile needs its own beer. Like it should be on a label at some point. Right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Batmobile
there you
Brown.
go. Could do that, yeah.
Bentmobile Brown right there.
All right.
Yeah.
And then when can
Rust
people?
colored is appropriate.
Oh, there you are.
When can people come right to the source and get it here? Do you have a target date, or
We've got a target date of mid-March to
Mid-March?
early April.
okay? So this
the way
spring
things
for-
have been sliding, I'm not holding a lot of confidence for those. But that's the basic idea,
Okay.
is around that area. So around the time that hopefully the ground is thawing, we'll
Okay.
also be opening here.
Very cool.
Cool.
Very cool. I'm really excited to see what you guys do in the future.
Thanks. Yeah, me too.
I think it's safe to say you'll see us here again.
Great.
Oh, definitely.
Great to hear.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, we got to fill up beers, so I guess
Yeah,
we got to cut.
these
All
are
right.
empty,
Right.
so
Yes.
I'll see you guys next week.